Hey guys, first of all, thank you for listening to the EduData podcast. Timothy and I have a great time talking about numbers and breaking down data for you, but we want to invite you to come and hang out with us. We are starting a webinar series, one per month, where we do essentially an episode of EduData via webinar with visuals, with our faces, and hopefully with you there to hang out with us.
You'll be able to log into the webinar and we'll have some more visual presentations. You'll be able to hang out and ask questions and have a more conversational format. So if you're interested in that, definitely check out our new webinar series. You can find registration information in the show notes or on enrollify.org.
Don't worry, if you can't make it to the webinar, that audio will be dropped on our podcast feed and available just like you access EduData now. Welcome to the EduData podcast, a podcast that serves as your weekly guide to the data driving higher education. We are your hosts. I'm Jamie Boggs.
And I'm Timothy Davis. Join us every Friday for weekly breakdowns of the most important data, trends, and topics in higher education.
The EduData podcast is a part of the Enrollify network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below.
Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.
Hello and welcome to the EduData podcast. I'm Jamie Boggs, back here with Timothy Davis and some special guests. So thanks for joining us today. Timothy, you want to introduce our new friends?
Sure, yeah, we're excited to have some guests on the podcast today. Today we have Garvel Kindrick, head of Enrollment Data at ZeeMee, and Vanessa Didyk, CEO of ZeeMee, and they have some exciting stuff to talk to us about predictive analytics, modeling, machine learning. Yeah, just stuff that we like to talk about, and they're share that same interest. So let me kick it over to them. Would y'all like to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about ZeeMee?
Sure. Thanks so much for having us. This is so fun, and we love your podcast. So it's really fun to get to be a part of it today. So thank you. ZeeMee is the number one student engagement platform for students to build community before they get to college. So we work with hundreds of colleges and help them to help kind of nurture that journey for students all the way kind of from the earliest moments of thinking about college while they're in high school to going through that application process. So we are a full funnel solution that helps to convert those students at higher rates through the journey. So students in ZeeMee are going to apply at twice the rate. They are going to melt at half the rate if they're in ZeeMee, and they're going to yield at 4 times the rate. So high impact for colleges and high happiness impact for students because they know who they're going to have dinner with the first day when they're on campus.
Absolutely. And I want to talk a little bit about the student user experience there, because that I think will color in some of the data that you have and or maybe inform the rest of our conversation. Can you talk a little bit about how the student experience functions in ZeeMee? Like when they first sign up, they're not necessarily associated with a school yet, but they have kind of a social media interface, right?
That's right. We have millions of students in the platform, and we're actually one of the top social apps in the App Store. One that a lot of people, if you're not looking to build community as you're going to college, you might not have noticed, but we're up there, number 11. We're consistently top 50 in the App Store. So students find us organically because their peers are talking about it. We're on Reddit, all over, kind of word of mouth. And then students also find us because schools that we work with are sort of promoting their communities and trying to invite them in. So they come in kind of in both categories. When they come in, they tend to follow all the schools that they're interested in and exploring. And that we can talk about later has a lot of interesting data signals there too. But they come in and they follow all the schools that they're interested in. They join those communities. They can chat with each other. They can look at each other's profiles. The profiles in ZeeMee are richer than profiles you find on other social, and they're much more authentic. We're not trying to create like that highlight reel of your life with perfect filtered pictures or anything like that. It's much more authentic about like, who are you as a person? They can answer fun little questions about themselves, and they can put in a roommate bio and roommate fun facts so they can search for roommates, search for friends, view content from the colleges in their feed so they can see kind of rich content about like what is life like for real on campus, not just the polished kind of marketing materials, but like everyday life stuff. What does that look like? And so they can get to know the college kind of through the lens of their peers. They can interact with the college as well when they're in there. But it's really about connecting and feeling like you belong and you're part of a community kind of as you go through that journey. And that makes those students stick and show up on campus.
Yeah, just to pick up on that point, what ZeeMee does is student first. It's student centric. That's what the app was built for. And the way that I look at it, I just say, let's look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You've got at the bottom level physiological, you need food and shelter and those sorts of things. But next is safety. We take safety very important as a social app. But then love and belonging. And that's really where I say ZeeMee comes into play. It helps those students connect with other students, find a place of belonging as they're going. So what we build is really student first. It's focused on the student, but hey, it just so happens to help those colleges as they look at those signals, those interactions that are happening. It just gives them a wealth of information. So student first, but we are helping colleges out.
Yeah, I think this is a solution that people have been trying to get to for a long time, whether individual colleges are working on it or other types of softwares. And it seems that ZeeMee has found the right combination of fun, of trust. I think you talked about the safety piece and the data piece, right? That's super important for finding out what works. We only know what works when it does. So what are some of those engagement signals or some of those data points that are important for ZeeMee when you're talking to colleges about what you're collecting and what you're seeing?
Sure. We're shifting to look at the model here. And again, there's any number of things that we look at, and it grows daily. We release new features, new experiences for students as we go through. That's one of the challenges for putting this model together is all of a sudden you get 10 more new things to take a look at. Mm-hmm. How does it affect enrollment and those sorts of things? But it's one we got a team up to the challenge to take a look at. But it would be those things that you expect. How many chats have they sent in your community? Have they made friends in your community? Are they watching videos that the schools are posting? Those sorts of things. I mean, there's a long list, and I won't go through each. I won't give you P scores. What's the most statistically significant? But just know that there's a bunch of stuff there that we take a look at and keep looking at. Vanessa, any one or two that you think are most important or that you see all the time?
I think a couple things to call out. So that behavioral data is highly predictive, right? And it's changing. And that's what gives us those sort of dynamic signals of where a student is. So things like those sort of meta activities of how much time are they spending in a particular community, how many profiles are they looking at, friends are they making, those things are very high signals of intent and interest. And we are mapping and tracking kind of how that's changing over time. But we also have that kind of 30,000 foot view of the student. So we're looking at their entire journey and how are they interacting with all the schools that they're following. And so those models take into account not just engagement with a particular school, but engagement with all of the schools. And so if we see that a student was highly engaged in, University X, but now they're spending more time in University Y, we adjust the scores for both, right? So one score goes up and the other score comes down. So there's a lot of kind of under the surface activity that we're tracking in addition to all of that high level public stuff that they know that they're putting in there and they know people are aware of. We're also tracking kind of those under the surface behaviors.
So that's a key difference between the model that ZeeMee has and I think anyone else there does. Most models I say are institution centric. Yeah, you're looking at students and what happened in the past 3 years, and maybe did they visit my website 2 weeks ago, something like that. But what you're not seeing is did they visit someone else's website 2 weeks ago? Did they go visit campus with someone else 3 weeks ago? So we've created sort of an ecosystem that, is student-centric. So we're seeing what the students are doing, not just with your college, but with a lot of colleges.
Yeah,
and the students are providing that data to us. So the students are telling us who they're visiting, where they're going, what they're doing. They're letting us know, which is really helpful.
I think that's so cool because exactly to Garvel's point there is like most institutions do want to know what's happening with their competitors, especially, but for the most part, they're reliant on what they can get from College Board or from the clearinghouse to like know where who went where type of thing. So yeah, I mean, having that, especially way back up at the top of the funnel when, your kind of surface level engagements are happening. But no, I completely agree. I think that the data that you've been able to accumulate, the features that you've been able to provide are really, really impressive. And to that point of like institutional versus student centric, yeah, most software platforms are built for the institution. They're partitioned from the database perspective to the institution, and then they manage the communication with that student through institution-owned channels, right? Where here ZeeMee is like a student-owned channel for the most part, right? They control when they engage, how they engage, and they can initiate communication a lot easier. So yeah, I think that's really impressive.
Thank you.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about what we're trying to do with this new model. So we've alluded to it a couple of times, but this is kind of in the works. This is cooking right now, right? So what is the outcome that we're looking for with this new model? Does it have a name? Does it have a pithy marketing name specifically? And then what can you tell us about it so far?
Well, let me jump in first. Again, we've had this commitment model for a long time. I mean, I remember, 7 years ago, I joined ZeeMee just over 7 years ago. About 5 or 6 months later, Vanessa joined ZeeMee. And I remember over Christmas, she said, guess what? We're going to be delivering data back to schools and we're going to give model scores. And so we had to work real fast to make that happen. When the CEO says it's going to happen, we make it happen. So we've been doing that, delivering data back and doing this commitment model for a long time. But we're getting ready to expand that quite a bit. Vanessa, I'll let you take it from there because the CEO is going to tell me what to do.
So we are the vision is predicting kind of the whole journey, cradle to grave. I mean, the new models that the team is working on are predicting who's going to apply, who's going to commit, who's going to melt and yield. Those are sort of inverse of one another. Who's going to retain, and we're actually behind the scenes working on a model of who's going to give back before they even apply. So that's how powerful this behavioral data is. But our new models also pull in all that other stuff. So the stuff that other folks are also modeling on, right? Like the data in the CRM, are they going to the website? Did they visit? All that kind of demo data. And we're piping in kind of as much of that external and sort of static kind of point in time data as we can to inform the models. But as Garvel said, the model that we have today, with 90% accuracy, we can tell you who's going to commit. And so that is just with the power of behavioral data, just with that alone.
Right. We're not looking at any of the geodemographic, financial aid, or other pieces. Now, we can certainly layer those sorts of things in. Right. And we're going to layer those sorts of things in. So the commitment model right now is based on those students who are on ZeeMee. And just to give you a little feel for what that looks like, again, average school on ZeeMee will have about 45% of their admitted students in community on ZeeMee. But those 45% of students are going to enroll. That's going to account for 70 to 75% of their enrollment. Now, so what we're looking to do is what can we do with those other students who aren't in community? How can we do some other modeling with them, get them into community and so forth as we're going through? So this commit model, just to, again, give you just a little bit more in the weeds, and sorry that this is, we're not on TV, we're on radio, right? This is radio.
That's right, yeah, over the air radio, AM.
AM on your dial. So I'm going to have to describe this, and Timothy, Jamie, you tell me if I take a left when you thought I was going to take a right. But just what the commitment model is that we currently do, we just give each student a score 0 to 1. 0, most likely not to commit. They're not going to be 1, most likely to commit, and then all in between, 0 point, whatever, all in between there. Then what we do is we put them into buckets, high, medium, and low buckets, or indexes, if you want to be technical about what we call. I just use the term bucket, but put them in the buckets, and it's that high bucket. What we try to do is make sure we're as accurate as we can be in that high bucket, because that's going to be of most use to our partners. So 15% of the students in their community will end up in that high bucket. And so we're going to say they're most likely to commit. That's where we're right. The precision, again, if we've got the statisticians out there, the precision is about 90% of the time, right at 90% of the time. If we say they're in the high bucket, they are going to commit. Also, just know one of the hidden gems of this is the low bucket. About 65% of the students are going to be in the low bucket. And guess what? Only about 0.5% of those are going to commit. And I tell people there's always reasons for that. There's not a perfect model here. And if we put someone in the low bucket, they can still commit, but maybe they live across the street. Maybe they're a full tuition academic student or a full tuition athlete who, for some reason, ZeeMee wasn't where they wanted to connect, so you're going to have that. But it's that high bucket where we're right 90% of the time. The low bucket, we're right pretty much 99.6% of the time. But it's that middle bucket which will make up about 15% of the students, where the team at the college can have focus. And they don't have to worry about that other 60% or 65%. Yeah, you don't want to ignore them, but you can employ other strategies on that middle bucket there to move them into the high. So again, maybe too much there.
No. I think that's exactly right, because we've talked about similar concepts of like, how do you across your percentages of folks that are likely to enroll, as you calculated at ZeeMee, or as an institution might be calculating it internally, how do they allocate their time? How do they prioritize? And that's a tricky one from a strategy perspective, because as you said, you don't want to ignore high likelihood kids. You don't want to just say like, this is a done deal, they're going to be here in the fall, see you then. You want to keep them engaged. You want to provide them meaningful experiences during the summer, and so they don't melt. But yeah, I like what you say about when you are thinking about how to spend your time every day, when you are thinking about, I have 150 students to get through, I can do 50 today, who do I go after? That medium bucket.
Hey, Sharon, I was just on a campus yesterday talking with a team, an admissions team. And again, to your point about don't ignore the high bucket, because again, some of those will melt. And again, this model doesn't look at melt. This is a model. Current model is just to commit. We'll go beyond that with the new models. But what I was showing them tomorrow, today now, hopefully they've done it. If you do anything, look at your committed students who committed before December 31st. They have a higher likelihood to melt than anyone after. Again, that's part of the data we see, and we look across a lot of partners that may not jump out to someone. Now, an astute enrollment manager, they already know that, but probably the majority haven't thought. Let's go back right today. Look at those students who committed before December 31st. Have they done everything else on our checklist? Did they visit campus? Do they have financial aid? Are they an athlete? Whatever that might be.
Well, and I think that low index is super useful too for money savings and sort of future proofing. So if you take that low index, let's not send them a really fancy, expensive mailer, right? If you send them that $6, catalog, that thing's going straight in the trash. You're putting your $6 in an envelope, you're mailing it off, and you'll never see anything from that. Doesn't mean don't reach out to those students. Put them on an email campaign. Maybe something that doesn't cost you as much, but that there's tens of thousands of dollars of savings right there, just in helping to kind of optimize that spend. Those other, also, if a low index student applies, that's a soft app. So that's a huge signal that there's not a lot of intent there. And so that's when to watch carefully. It doesn't mean you can't nurture them back into the fold or something because they did apply, but that's a soft app that you want to watch really carefully and handle differently with different messaging. Let's connect with those parents if we can. Let's find a different way to connect with them.
Right. And look at that engagement, for that low student, let's look at their engagement over time, and let's look at that trajectory. All of a sudden, if after January 15th, for whatever reason, they become more active in our community and they move from low to medium, if you see someone on that upswing trajectory, hey, it's a great time for another outreach from an admissions counselor. I mean, we're sort of giving them the signals. This is who you need to contact today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that you're right that a lot of people know these things intuitively. Like, yes, they commit early, then I need to be. But seeing it in front of your face and getting those signals, getting those alerts, having those lists still makes it sink in a little more. How is this data presented to the campuses? How do they have access to see what's happening within their ZeeMee communities?
So they have a really robust dashboard that they can go in and see all of this and slice and dice the data every which way and get access to that, look at that funnel and start to kind of cut it and compare how students are converting through the funnel with sort of different data signals. So they can kind of filter by those signals. And then we have a new product coming out that is doing all of the so what for the teams. And so the new product will just say, here are the data signals that our Amit Garvel and team, we have the most insanely talented data team on the planet. I just praise Garvel daily. So the team has been studying this. They are studying it constantly. What are the signals in ZeeMee? And how do we layer on the ZeeMee signals to those indexes, right? To our prediction scores. And how do we combine the two and then make it super actionable for the teams? And we're actually doing that with all the data that we can pull in. So we're making those recommendations now for counselors in a dashboard boom, 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 here's what to do. If you do nothing today, kind of what Garvel was saying, just take these 10 actions because these are going to drive the highest value. And it's driven by the data. So it's teaching these young teams, particularly young recruiting teams, how to look at data, draw actions from that, insights and actions from that, take those actions, and then analyze the impact of those actions. And so we're taking it kind of to another level with the new product, with the dashboard, just kind of giving them here's what to do today. Here's how to spend your time.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful because you're right. A lot of admissions teams are new. There's not exactly a degree program for college recruitment at admissions. So it's not like people are coming out of college and they're like, I'm ready to go. Drop me in the workforce and I'm going to drive this thing. They definitely need that upstart time to get acclimated and kind of understand the system.
Right. Well, and young recruiters, Garvel, they are like all heart and hustle and enthusiasm, and they just want to do a good job every day. But they open their computer and they're like, oh no, what do I do? Like, where do I start? There's so many students in my pipeline. How do I discern, signals from noise in the data? I was a data science major, most likely. So how do I look at data and draw intel and draw sort of those insights to help me focus? And then what do I do with it? And so they have kind of neither the art nor the science of recruiting yet. Mm-hmm. They want both. And the team wants to give them both. And what we find is that associate director or director who sits above that team spends a ton of time trying to point them in the right direction, cut the data. They're in Slate saying, well, let's look at these two combinations of data, and maybe that's who we should be calling today. And instead, we have all the data, and we have all of the ability to say, here's your hottest targets for today. And it might be slightly different tomorrow because we're basing it on updates, real-time updates in our system and in the CRM. And so we may add 10 students to that bucket tomorrow. We may pull out 10 students from that bucket and from those recommendations. So we're probably best equipped to tell you who to go after and what to do.
Yeah, and just a note, one of the pieces of data we share back with colleges is the student tells us in ZeeMee or their community where I'm going before sometimes they tell the institution. So we might know at midnight yesterday, they say, I'm going to college XYZ. And as Vanessa would say, wouldn't it be great if that college knew that 15 minutes later?
Yeah,
exactly. Because they've got there's an action they need to take tomorrow. So
right, we can tell you this student just got admitted to one of your competitors. I mean, mom is out there buying the balloons in that school's colors and tying them to the mailbox to celebrate that acceptance letter. That's a really good time to send swag, make a phone call, remind them of your brand and get in front of that family. So there's a lot that ZeeMee knows that you just kind of can't get anywhere else.
Absolutely. And you mentioned this at the top, Garvel, that there's a lot that goes in behind the scenes when we start to actually orchestrate this and execute it at a technical level. And I know we don't like to get too technical. We don't want to necessarily share, what the config file says or whatever, but what the secret sauce is like. But I think there's a lot of value in understanding, at a high level, the nuts and bolts that go into a project like this and what it kind of looks like from behind the scenes.
Sure.
So what has it taken to get your modeling to this point? And can you divulge any of the tools you've used or what your tech stack kind of looks like?
Sure.
Give people a sense of what this looks like.
Share just a few little notes for you. Anytime I talk about things like this, and Vanessa's already done it, I start with the people. We are a small but mighty data team. And if it wasn't for each of the components, so let me shout out the team, if you'll let me real fast, because we got Mayur Wagela, who has built all this as far as the model is concerned. He's our senior data scientist. He knows more about this than I will ever know or could even make up. So Mayur.
But he doesn't like coming on podcasts.
That's right. Mayur, thank you for that. JC Denny is our data ops manager. She plays in the data sandbox every day. She knows what's going on in over 200 campuses' data than they do. I can assure you, because we will find issues and errors and ask questions, and they'll say, oops, we didn't know that. But that's beside the point. Then our most recent addition is Dr. Ryan Conyers, who I worked with in a previous life at my institution. He was my director of financial aid, institutional research, and those sorts of things. He's come on this year, and he is adding synthesis and analysis to all the the ones and zeros that we've got in all the data. And so a great team there. Minnie Krishnamurthy is our COO and chief of data science, and she herds all the cats to make sure we're going in the right direction. My job is just to stay out of their way. So again, as we talk about this, you've got to have the team in place as we're going through. But let me so I asked Mayura, because you talked about data stack and you wanted to go into those sorts of terms. So let me give you Mayura's words on this, okay? Let's see if I can find where I've got that. And
you want to just call him real quick? I know he doesn't like podcasts,
right.
but just call him up.
Phone a friend.
Yeah, that's right. It's like a cash cab.
Yeah. First, again, for the stats nerds out there, what we're using is a random forest model. Okay. So hopefully they know that. It's random forest model focused on past behavior and outcomes of millions of records and millions of commitments as we're going through this. Again, as he educates me, random forest uses multiple decision trees, each trained on a subject of the data. These trees can capture complex nonlinear relationships. The final prediction is an average. Again, nonlinear. A lot of people think about the bell curve, where you got 15% of students who will come no matter what you do, 15% who won't come, and then you got the middle. Again, those percentages I just gave you, they're not bell curve. This is nonlinear that we're trying to get at as we go through. And I know I've got a paragraph that he's given me here someplace, but I'm not going to be able to find it that talks about how we do this. Again, we're using R, Python, AWS, to put all these things together. So again, we're running cron jobs. It's pulling data from schools, pulling our data, putting the things together, running the models, those sorts of things. So Timothy, I'm not sure if that helps at all. If that gets to the technical language you wanted. I will just mention, when I say all this stuff, there's going to be about half the people out in the audience says, wow, he knows what he's talking about. There's going to be the other half out in the audience who say he doesn't have a clue what he's talking about. And so I don't know which is which, but it reminds me of the Mark Twain quote. It's better to remain silent and be thought of a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. So maybe I've just spoke and removed all doubt that I'm a fool. Who knows?
When you drop AWS, that always lends some credibility. People want the fancy cloud infrastructure and all that fun stuff. But no, that's very interesting to know. And I think it's also important for people to kind of conceptualize that stuff. Is that this type of computing requires a lot of resources. Mm-hmm. It's not something that's just being done on somebody's laptop. It's not something that's being done on your on-premise server that used to hold the H drive where you dropped your PDF files and your Excel files back in 2010. This thing's running on some beefy infrastructure, and
that's right, expensive, beefy.
That's right.
Infrastructure. That's right. Yeah. And now that we're modeling with more models on all the students in the CRM, not just the ones in ZeeMee. Goodness gracious, yeah. That's the stuff I worry about, right? Right.
What's our
there you go. That's my. And then what do we do with it, right? Like, how do you take all this intel and make it actionable? Like that's where Garvel and I live on a daily basis.
Yeah, I gave a team I was with yesterday a quiz for some ZeeMee swag, and one of the questions was, the tiebreaker question was, and I'm not going to give you all the answer. I'm just going to tell you what the question was. The question was, how many million records do we get from our partners a week, in a given week? The answers were, I think, like 2.2 million total records, inquiries, and beyond from our partners. The answer that won was 3.1 million. But I can tell you the answer that won, who didn't go over, wasn't close to the number of records, the millions of records that we get from partners every week, ongoing.
Yes.
$1, Bob.
Much higher.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Price is Right game right there. That's good. Yeah.
I like it. As we start to wrap up here, you mentioned several times newer models. I just pulled up LinkedIn. Garvel, you've been teasing some ZeeMee Data Matters posts coming up. Anything you can leave our listeners with on things to watch or when to watch for them?
Well, again, I've on LinkedIn and otherwise, podcast-wise, been mostly silent. Again, I'm going to show my foolishness by sharing a little bit more. So we will do about 2 LinkedIn posts a week, just ZeeMee Data Matters. It'll cover different things. We're focusing on melt right now because melt is melt season. And as I said in the opening post, some of this is just going to be, hey, this is knowledge you should know. We should know. People are going to say, hey, that's nothing new. But as you said earlier, reminding yourself of some of this stuff that's solid core is important. Some of it will be new. All of it will be how ZeeMee performs differently in different aspects, whether it's stealth applications, how stealth applications work. So we'll be rolling that out over the coming weeks, and we just hope to have some interaction. Maybe someday there'll be a ZeeMee Data Matters podcast. Who knows?
Yes.
Love that idea.
All right. Well, thank you both for joining us today. This has been a great episode and great to hear from you both. Thanks for all the knowledge and wisdom you shared. Of course, Garvel mentioned you can find on LinkedIn and, of course, ZeeMee.com. Is that right?
That's right.
Where you can learn more about ZeeMee. All right. For Jamie Boggs, I'm Timothy Davis. Thanks for listening in today. See you in the next one.
The EduData podcast is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like the other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month. We've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional.
Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Jamie Hunt, Artis Cadu, Dustin Ramsdale, Jeremy Tiers, and so many of your other favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.